Is your post-match with Dave and Les. We'll be with you in a minute or so. But first of all, Warren's been down at St Mary's. Here's his thoughts after the 90 minutes.
Down on the south coast at St Mary's, where it's finished. Southampton 1, Everton 0. Typical Everton fashion, we gift Southampton their first win of the season. Everton didn't do enough to deserve the 3 points, in my opinion. Fine defensively and in midfield, but when it comes to the crunch and putting the ball in the back of the net, quality severely lacks. It's getting a bit tiresome, these away performances, coming to these type of grounds against these type of teams and not putting them away. But there you go, you get punished if you don't do what you should, put the ball in the back of the net. Their goal comes from Beto hitting the crossbar when he should score, and then we switch off, go up the other end. Southampton punish us. Exactly what we should have done to them, but that's how it goes. Thankfully, though, this manager will not be here this time next year, so we won't have to put up with too much more like that. Another insipid, another dull performance. No urgency, really. Huffed and puffed, but never really looked like we wanted to go for that goal and a killer, and just lacked complete killer instinct. Notable performances for me. Gay had another good game. Mangala was superb as well for me. But yeah, just another performance where we come away undone and gift the team the 3 points. We were lucky last week against Fulham, where we probably should have got beat there. Well, we've been punished severely today, so there we go. Walking away from St Mary's, from the south coast, very disappointed. It's finished Southampton 1, Everton 0. I'll hand it over to Dave for post-match.
It's me and Les having a chat about this once again. It wasn't the nicest game to watch, but when there's a Sean Dyche one being that way, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But ultimately, 1-0 defeat. Two poor sides playing against each other, Les. One probably a little bit less poor than the other. And I'd probably say that Everton were the better side of the two, but nonetheless, the home side gone on and won 1-0. Missed quite a few chances. What did you make of all that?
Yeah, like you said, it was just two poor sides playing a bad game of football. I said it was like an end-to-end game, but it was still crap somehow. I think there's enough there for it to be a bit of a hard luck story for Everton, and we'll get the usual rallying cry on Tuesday. But that's a disaster of a result. You know, it's hard to know who to blame most because, you know, obviously the team did not play well again today, but did create 4 good chances. Now, Michael Keane's chance, it's a great save by Ramsdale, and he gets lucky that it doesn't hit him and go in. But then Harrison should have scored. Beto should have scored that header, and then he's unlucky with the offside. But when you're not scoring 1 in 4 good chances...
Mangala as well.
And Mangala, yeah. You know, it's not a coincidence. It's just poor, really. And it's just not good. That wasn't a must-win. It was just a must-not lose. And we've lost it. And we've once again... Going into this game, we were in a good position to get 3 points, then start looking up at the table. Because then when you get to 12 points, you're looking at the mid-table teams there, really, and you're pulling away from the bottom 3. But now we're right back in it. You know, we'll probably lucky Leicester have got a draw at Ipswich there, because that would have put us even more in it. So it looks pretty bleak at the minute. I think one thing I'm worrying about as well, sorry, I'm rattling through every thought I've got in my head here at the minute. But what worries me is we've had a little unbeaten run there, 5 games without defeat. Are we going to go like another 10 without a win? Because that was the story of last season, and I don't think we can afford to do it again this season. It's hard to pick any positives from that for me.
Yeah, you look at that run of fixtures as well. We'll go through in a minute because they're pretty daunting. They aside from a couple of home games against Brentford and Wolves, Everton's away games up until New Year are pretty fearful, to say the very least. Yeah, I mean, I agree with the style of that game. Well, it's the only style that Sean Dyche tends to know there. I think that a lot of people, if they weren't already so, would be fed up with Calvert-Lewin now, and Beto has to start some games. That's not just based in today's game in a nutshell, but Beto came on and caused trouble.
Yeah,
and we're scraping the battle there, but he's slightly higher up in the battle than Dominic Calvert-Lewin, isn't he? That might be overly critical of him because where he hit the bar, I think that's an absolute... I keep on... I put a joke and tweet out there that you might well see, which is something that really probably shouldn't be said. Hang on, what am I on about here? We're actually doing today's post-match at BBC Radio Merseyside. I'm thinking, you can't swear here, you can't swear. I can't fucking swear. That was an absolute disgrace of a miss, in my opinion. It was a shocking miss when he's 3 yards out.
Yeah.
People saying it went in too fast at him and all that. Just don't buy that at all, to be honest with you. But nonetheless, that's the type of Everton we've got, isn't it? Until we get Brozier in, until we're able to do something different there. Everything else, I mean, I wanted to ask you firstly about Lindstrom, because, I mean, to say, I've wrote him off recently far too early to do so. But today, what did you make of him? I thought he was all right at times, and other times I thought this fella just isn't suited for the Premier League, because he's lightweight, isn't he, to say the very least.
He is.
He can put a decent ball in, he's quick. But the other side of that is he does not look like a player that would fit in the Sean Dyche system. No,
not at all. As you say, he is lightweight and he's a quick winger. I just don't think we sort of play to his strengths, really, because what you want to be getting the ball over the back of the fullback, and he can run round, or getting the ball to his feet and he can have a run at the fullback. And it's I don't know, he seems to be at his best when he's just like hitting a dead ball in, or he's got time to just hit a cross in, which is, effectively like a dead ball if there's no one closing him down. He's frustrating, but he maybe needs a run of games. I think one thing that was noticeable, and again, it was a like-for-like Sean Dyche change where he took Calvert-Lewin and then Dye off, put Harrison on, put Better on, same system, different players, that wasn't working really. I think we did get a little bit more urgency when those two came on. And I think you're right about Better. I think he's done more in half an hour across the last 2 games than Calvert-Lewin has done in weeks and weeks. So, he's got to be in the conversation to start against West Ham. Lindstrom, I think I'd give him another go, because he is a player who, he has got that turn of pace. He can hit a good crossing. He can offer more going forward than Jack Harrison. He offers very little defensively. So it's kind of, what do you want from your winger? Unfortunately, Sean Dyche probably wants 2 right backs on the wing, effectively. So I don't know. I think it would be harsh to drop him, because I do think, we're just not doing well enough in those areas. And I don't know, I'm contradicting myself. My head's all over the place with this. I just don't know what to think after that performance and the result. But I'd give him a run in the team, to be honest, and just see how he gets on. As I say, we have created big chances there and not scored them, but then we were crap. And I can't work out what exactly is at fault. I don't know if I've continued on this with a bit of a narrative since he started doing me head in a lot, as both most others, and it's Tarkowski. I mean, he could have got sent off when he comes. He was lucky there.
He slices right in behind the player. And I look at him, his face, you look at him, you think he smiles a lot. He seems to look slightly on edge all the time. And I'm like, is that needed from your captain who's meant to set an example? And absolutely not. Michael Keane, no fault at all, I don't think, even though you've gone and lost 1-0 and we've conceded the goal. I didn't see anything wrong with what Michael Keane did. Then you've got Branthwaite coming on as a sub. Now, that used to burn my head out, and it consistently does with any form of football that you see, bringing on an injured player. Otherwise, you'd be starting him.
Yeah.
Why on earth is he on the bench if he's not fully fit? Therefore, why is he not starting if he is fully fit? And you've got your best defender there. The thing that we will not see under Sean Dyche, which is adding to my long list of issues I've got with him being our manager, is I don't think he'd ever start Branthwaite alongside Michael Keane. No. And when you think about it, obviously Branthwaite's done nothing wrong because he's barely played, but Tarkowski has started being a real issue now in recent games this season. Sean Dyche won't change that. He will maintain Tarkowski. As much as we've laughed and joked about how much he loves Keane, Keane actually deserves his place in the side right now. But the fact that you've got a captain doing that's a massive issue in itself. And I don't think, personally, reading other people's views, it hasn't been made enough of how poor he's been recently. And those rash challenges are showing you absolutely everything that you don't need when a team needs sort of somebody to pull everyone up and say, listen, get it sorted here, lads, because he's certainly not doing it himself, is he? No,
he's becoming a liability. Yeah. So you look at the one against Palace, which was just the right side of a decent tackle, I think, on the edge of the box. could have been given as a foul, could have been given as a penalty. You look at the one at Newcastle where he's just lashed that player to the ground, complete liability there, could have cost us the game. Again, today, he was very lucky not to get a red card there.
Yeah.
If you think of some of the sendings off we've had over the years, I think Jagielka at Wolves was the one that was most similar to it.
Silva's first game,
although he did take his ankle in that one. He could really have taken that player out there, and on another day, the ref could have said, "Nah, do you know what, get off." I think Southampton were quite lucky not to get a player sent off. But yeah, he is becoming a liability, and you do feel like in Sean Dyche's head he is undroppable. I know he's the captain, but he's clearly playing through something, whether it's an injury or he's feeling that he's out of form. So he's trying to be the big hard man on the pitch and show everyone, this is what I do. I go through players. And it's not good enough. You can't do that. Michael Keane, it's becoming quite the redemption arc, this, but he's playing pretty well in defence. I don't think he's had a mistake in him for a couple of weeks, and he does give us that threat going forward. There was 2 chances he had there. The header, which he did really well to get on the end of, and it was a great save. But there was another one in the first half where I think he may have just got the ball just didn't make it through to him in the first half. But he's the furthest forward player making a run into the box, so he does offer you that as well. He's a goal threat, and he's not really making the mishaps that he used to. The conversation's all about Tarkowski, and playing Branthwaite and Keane together, I think it would settle the team down a little bit, because as you say, he's running around like a bit of a maniac at the minute, and he didn't cost us, let's say, today, but he could do. If we go down to 10 men, and the result couldn't have been any worse, but we could have conceded more goals. So yeah, I think it's not going to happen, is it though? Yeah,
that's the thing. I mean, I hate the thought that you just kept on the first 11 because you're the captain. Yeah. I know a captain's a huge thing, certainly with us as well, and because of Seamus in many ways, Seamus has been the captain for years, so he's such a crucial player, and I do understand that if a captain makes a mistake, there'll not be as much criticism of them as there will be if another player on the pitch does. So, you've got that perfect example there. If Keane makes a mistake, people try to find out where he lives. But if Branthwaite, if Tarkowski makes a mistake, it's almost like unlucky there. You know what I mean? He hasn't done as bad in those positions. But I tell you what, you get to a point where you're like, listen, this is a serious issue here. Then add to the fact you've got a manager as well who this sort of comes down to it all here. All of these facets we talk about here come down to Sean Dyche not making subs, as we've spoken about, but also you've got a brand new centre back that you've played who, for some reason, people have wrote off, given the fact he started one game and come on a couple of times as a substitution. But nonetheless, he's a player we've paid 15 million quid for from Lyon, and you've got Branthwaite there on the bench. You've got 4 centre backs there. You can't tell me with 4 centre backs that Tarkowski, even though as captain, is flawless. You can't. You have to be able to accept you've got to drop him if there's issues. And he doesn't seem to pick our team based on merit. And I think sometimes the mentality that he's got when he's our manager is he looks at it and thinks, you know what, he'll recover. He'll recover from that next game. He's dealt in his career, and I know it's something like a bit of stereotype with him that these hard men that he seems to have been like. Quite close to particularly when he's at Burnley as well with him and Keane in years gone by. He's decided to stick with it. That stubbornness which we bang on all the time about. That's why Everton seems to get managers from that seems to need to be the top of their forte or CV when you get a job at Everton, is that if you're stubborn you'll definitely get that job. But looking at the further afield, further up the field. Midfield-wise, I thought we were fine in general. I thought Idrissa Gueye has been probably our best player for the last few games.
He needs to jib those white tights, though. Yeah, he looks like an NFL player.
I have no idea what he's doing there. Like, it has to be a different version of Alan Ball doing something else. And he had Mangala next to him. I thought Mangala was really, really good. Really appealing to me that he should be starting games. I know Irabunum is injured now, isn't he? He's out injured for a bit.
Garner as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got, and I think you mentioned this when you were talking on Radio Merseyside about actual options are there. Now, I think that in turn puts a pressure on Dyche to get this right, or certainly put in players and give them a certain chance.
Yeah.
When you've got it settled there, and I said this when Decore was in last week, and it was fine. Him and Gueye in general was pretty decent. It was pretty solid, despite the fact it's not a natural position for Decore really. Today, though, it felt a little bit more comfortable between those two in there. I thought, I wouldn't go as far as saying dominated it, but looked comfy in the most part in midfield. So, you know, if you're looking at something to take a positive from, that's probably one of the things you throw on that very, very short list.
I probably the only one, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, but to like sort of pick apart at that a little bit, if you look at the goal we conceded, I'm not sure who is at fault, really. It's potentially Ashley Young. It could be one of the midfielders, because whoever has let Armstrong run about 15, 20 yards from out wide into the middle of the penalty area and get a free shot off. Very similar to the one at Ipswich, where he skied it. It was the same thing.
Yeah.
Everyone switched off and let a player have a free shot in the middle of the box. And that's potentially on the midfield, potentially on Ashley Young. But either way, it's not good enough. We shouldn't be conceding goals like that. But yeah, I think if there is a positive to take, that midfield does seem like a decent defensive too. The problems are when you get up the other end, aren't they? I mean, you've got the defensive issues with the goal, but it's just, we're just not putting those chances away. When Calvert-Lewin's on the pitch, we're not creating the chances. When he's off the pitch, we're not scoring them. That's how it feels, and it's really weird. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know whether the manager's at fault for this or the players, because we have created a lot of big chances this season that we've not converted, that would have changed the outcome of certain games, including today. And it's baffling for me. But this is what the manager's paid for, to get round problems like this. And the way he's doing it at the minute is sticking with what he knows, like for like substitutions on about 60, 70 minutes, chaos for the last 10 by throwing Michael Keane up front. And that seems to be the game plan. Get the big fella up at the end, get it in the mixer, and we do look more dangerous when we do that. Yeah. Weirdly, but it's not sustainable, lad, is it? You can't just like roll the dice and rely on chaos to get your goals at the end of games to get you back into it. It just isn't good enough for a manager, and he's possibly got to try something different. If it's not working for Calvert-Lewin up front, maybe try to up front. I don't think 4-4-2 is a very good formation to play these days, because you can get your midfield sort of overrun if they're playing, the opposition are playing a 3 in the midfield for a start. But I think he's got to try something different, because it ain't working.
No. One of the things that got to me again, and I mentioned it last week, and it completely nullifies a lot of the stuff that we do, because he's been our best player since we got him with Ndai. That's the second game running, I think, where you've seen two teams nullify what he can actually do, whether that means 2 or 3 players going right up against him. A lot of other sides, well, I say a lot of the sides, those 2 that we've played since have roughened them up a little bit, won a few free kicks, but then there's, it's only a certain amount of them that you get in the Premier League. I'm not saying he's naive in any sense of the word, but you'll get big lads there thinking, you know what, I'll just knock him out of the way, shoulder barge him out of the way. Today, second game running, where I've looked at him and thought, you know what, maybe you give him a rest, because you're not going to be knacking 10 games in, is he? But he came off. I think it was probably right for him to come off the pitch at that stage, but it just showed you in so many different parts of that game that if he's not on fire, or if he's not in positions that Everton can use and against any opposition, it puts us in a big issue of even getting close to scoring a goal.
Yeah, he got kicked out of that game, to be honest, didn't he? They really went for him, especially in the first 20.
Well, that's what anyone would do, though. I mean,
it's
the point that I made a couple of weeks ago. You will get found out in the Premier League, and that's not me saying that, he's a bag of tricks, and I've loved seeing him at the start. He's been our best player, personally, think, since we got him, and he's one of those the kids that'll be excited by a player who can do the sort of thing he can do and all that. But if you're a manager doing your training session early in the week, looking at your opposition, he's probably the first one when you look at Everton and think, you know what, we nullify him, then we're probably limiting them to only 2 or 3 chances, and that's if they play a decent ball into Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's where our manager has to be a bit cuter with this. So, Southampton today fully expected Ndai to play on the left, and he did. And they closed him down. Stick him on the right, stick him down the middle. Do something different. Even 10 minutes in, if they're doing that, if they're closing him down and kicking him out the game, just move him. Just play him somewhere else. So then the other side's got to worry about him. And then just say to the front 3, just interchange, just do whatever you want. Because the 3 players who are playing there can pretty much play in every position. Yeah. Every one of them can play at 10. Everyone can play on the opposite wings. Just say to them, do you know what? 10 minutes in, just switch. Switch again another 5. Just keep mixing it up.
On that point, though, do you think, and obviously it's any speculation from us to say it though, but you've got 3 lads there, you do a bit of, amateur footy management and whatnot. If you've got 3 lads there and you put them on the pitch and they're all the same type of player where you can move them across, like you say, you can mix them up. And in this case, we're talking about Lindstrom, McNeil and Dye today. And you can throw them, you can mix them about and all that, which should cause the opposition hell to do so. If you're a manager, do you have them straight, which I guess is the way Everton do it? Sean Dyche has told them to rigidly stay in the position I've given you to play in.
Yeah.
Or are you simply saying, which I would prefer, listen, lads, talk to each other here. Say, listen, swap over, or have somebody to take charge of that and say, should we switch this?
Yeah.
Like, it's clear to me that that's not necessarily being done one way or the other, is it?
No, it does feel like Dyche has just got them very rigidly. Their oppositions stay in them. So I played 4-2-3-1 as well, and my front 3 I left up to them. I said to the 3 of them, just do what you want to do. If you're not getting any luck on the right, just go on the left, because they could all switch like that.
Isn't there morale up then with lads who are able to do that? I mean, that must be a dream if you're an attacking player and you get told, listen, lads, you express yourselves. Just each operate a position that you need to stay in.
Yeah, and the thing is, as a manager, you've got to trust your players. And if they're decent players who, they're not stupid as well, they know what they're doing on the pitch. You say sort of sometimes, don't you, the manager puts the team out and then he can't do anything else to affect the game. He can, but the players can as well. I think we touched on this on Blue Monday, actually, last week when we said that the players need to take more responsibility. I mean, maybe the manager isn't giving them, and if he's not giving them that responsibility, that's pretty bad management, because, as you say, forward players, if you say to them, right, we've got 3 positions across the front, you play left, you play middle, you play right. But if at any point you want to swap to give the opposition something to think about or to get yourself into the game, do it. They're going to love that, aren't they? And, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's got to be a chaotic front 3 with everyone arguing, because they're not stupid. They'll know when to do it, and they'll know if they've got the beat. Say, like, Ndiaye might have looked over at the right there and thought, I could have him on toast all day. But it's not going to happen. And I think, that's just another deficiency with the team. We keep saying it all season. There are options he can draw on here. There are different things he can do. And he just won't until the last 10 minutes, when he just throws Michael Keane up front and relies on whatever might happen. It's all very reactive and just hoping for something to happen. And it isn't good enough. And like I say today, you can't disguise how much of a bad result that was today. It's going back to when Southampton beat us at Goodison under Lampard, when Wolves beat us at Goodison under Lampard, who again we've got in a few weeks. It's looking a bit like that again. And if we go on, as I said before, if we go on another run like we did last season, it's just going to be another horrible, horrible season.
I know we've got the international break coming up as well, but we've got, I think, 2 or 3 games before you get into that horrible run of matches we've got in and around Christmas, which probably spoil it for everyone when you're celebrating the New Year and all that sort of thing. But with Dyche now, just to finish off with Dyche, I want to ask you about Beto before that as well, actually. But with Dyche, you're putting a lot of that on him today. You're putting a lot more onto that, because immediately after we lose a game like we did there against one of the poorest sides in the league, a newly promoted side, in a 6-pointer as well, let's be honest. Does that add to his woes of, do you know what, this isn't working, we need to change it up?
I think so, but I think, as I said, he'll see enough in that for it to be a bit of a hard luck story, which in a way it was, because we should have scored some of those chances, but we just didn't. The first half, we didn't do anything. And
we're missing those chances, Les, that you mentioned there. I think, one of the things I'd look at as well is that, if you create more of them, one of them's going to go in. That'd be an issue that I've got with him, is that, okay, well, we could sit here all night and talk about Beto's miss, which is atrocious. Beto scores when he's just, like, I don't know, half an inch offside.
It was a great touch and finish as well.
It was. Didn't know he was capable. I didn't even think it was him when he first did it. You got that, you got Keane's miss, you got Harrison's miss, and you think, oh, do you know what, that was really unlucky. But I think what goes against Dyche is, how often are we doing that? How often can we say we're creating that many chances in a game? And if you're not doing that, there's every chance you don't score in a match as well. So that adds to my woes with him being Everton manager.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, like, the first half, Just nothing happened in that first half. As I said, it was end to end, but it was rubbish.
He'd have taken that though. He'd be happy with that.
Yeah, it will be get through the first half 0-0, see what happens in the second half, and that's the issue. It always feels like, let's see what happens, not like, right, let's get at these. There's a lot of talk before the game on, whether we should be on the front foot more, particularly after Fulham last week, when it was like we sat back at home, and that's always been the sort of complaint, hasn't it? That when you're at home, you should be more on the front foot and take the game to the other team. I'd argue that today, away, we could have done that.
You're playing away side. I'd say away side, obviously, when you went on a 1-1-0, but you are playing against a newly promoted side. Ipswich being a prime example as well.
Yeah.
Whereas, I just don't... for someone who comes across as such a hard man of a manager, that sort of that stereotype people have thrown at him for his entire managerial career, seems to me to bottle a few things like that. You're like, do you know what, mate? Just dip your toe in the water a little bit deeper and just see if you can do something else.
Well, it does, and the whole sort of the substitution thing, we talked about this like since he's been here, but it all feels very scripted, doesn't it? It's like, I mean, just to go back to like managing a kids team, it's kind of what you do with a kids team, where you've got to give players a certain amount of game time. So you pre-plan your subs and say, right, on 20 minutes you're coming on half time you're coming on, and things like that. And he's not. It doesn't seem to be looking at the game and thinking, right, how can we affect this game? He's just letting Everton passively take part in a game of football, and maybe we'll do something to win it. And that really isn't good enough. I've said all along, he's done well to keep us up in the 2 seasons that he has. Now, there were mitigating circumstances in that as well, because there were a lot of teams that were worse than us for a start. But last season, all told, it was a pretty good points haul we would have got. And it's just not showing anywhere near doing that again this season. And, with the squad he's got at his disposal now, we should be.
If we're sat here talking about predictable things, our team's done for half an hour that we've been speaking about there, what does that say about professional football managers and professional players as well? Do you know what I mean? That's what gets me.
Exactly. We're just knobheads on podcasts.
Yeah. So it's like, great promotion of the podcast. I'm glad people have listened to 30 minutes before they've thought, hang on, why am I listening to this? But just before we finish now, do you start Beto at the Calvert-Lewin away at West Ham?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's done. He's not the most elegant footballer.
Although he looked it with that goal.
He did, yeah. That was incredible. That's so unlucky as well. Again, I'll come back to the offside rule as well. He's looked across the line there and he's onside because he's looked and he's level with the defender and his kneecap is off, and it's just not right.
It's a really good run as well.
It's a great ball. It's a great run. It's a great touch and it's a great finish, and they can't wait to rule it offside. Yeah. And it's I think Sean Dyche said in the post-match, offside's offside, and that's the problem. That shouldn't be offside. He's gained no advantage by having his kneecap ahead of a player's arm, let's say. There's been no advantage gained there from that decision. And it's infuriating. But yeah, he did miss that head. It was very similar to last week's goal, actually, wasn't it? But I think Tarkowski played it across a little bit harder than Ashley Young did. Still should have buried it. Yeah. But it was very similar, and he's getting in those positions. Which, how many chances has Calvert-Lewin had at one-on-ones aside that he's fluffed? When's he got into those sort of positions where the ball's flashed across the box and he's on the end of it? He just hasn't. And Beto's made more stuff happen in half an hour of football over 2 games than, like I said, Calvert-Lewin's done in about 6-7 games. Yeah. So he starts with me. What about you?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think it's just something different as well. Do you know what I mean?
Do you start them both?
No. I don't think we're good enough. I don't think we're good enough to eliminate whatever position you take out and put an extra striker back in. I just don't feel as if
it's sacrificing midfielder, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I just don't think we've got a manager who's clever enough to be able to think, what, I can mix this up and maybe, hang on, I never thought of that before. Do you know what I mean?
One potential option, and there's a week to work on it, and it's always weird if a manager just parachutes in a 3-5-2 or a 5-3-2, whatever you want. But then you are given the 2 strikers a go. You're playing all 3 centre-backs, basically. So you can still play Keenan Tarkowski and Branthwaite. Yeah. Everybody's happy. And, you probably can't trust Ashley Young and Vitaly Mikalenko to be like the marauding wing-backs. Yeah. But then if they're in a 5 and then there's a 3 and a 2, so your midfield shouldn't really get overrun because there's still 3 in there. Yeah. It's an option, and it is something different that... we're going to West Ham next week and they're on their arse as well. That's another effective 6 points, really. It feels like another must not lose, but you only get so many of them before they start becoming must-wins, and we don't want must-wins in December.
No.
So it would be nice to see him try something. I would like to see him try that, maybe, because it's just not working. Whatever he's doing, it's the same stuff every week, rotating players into the same formation, and it's just not working. And that's today. As I said, we'll get the rallying cry on Tuesday, but that's got to be a wake-up call for everyone there. You've just been beaten by a team who were like rock bottom, 1 point all season.
I don't know about you, but at the start of the season, I sort of do like a plus and a minus based on what points I think we should take from certain games. Yeah. And that draw against Fulham, that defeat against Southampton, they're, in my opinion, if Fulham at home at Goodison, probably 3 points that you're not expecting to take, but you're thinking, do you know what, I can probably tick that on my list where we get 3 points. Yeah. There's 6 points there. We've only got one from that. You think about opposition coming up. You think about away form. I think since we've had Dyche, by and large, I think we feel much more comfortable as playing away from home.
Yeah.
Going to West Ham, no, you mentioned that 6 pointer, but it really is giving their managers probably on the sack. If he loses, if Everton go win there, they're probably going to sack him. Yeah. And he's only been there a few months, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But given that puts them right into the state we're in as well.
And the flip side is there, if Everton go and lose, Sean Dyche won't get sacked.
Well, that's it. Do you know what? That's an extra point. And Sean Dyche has been doing worse. I mean, that sort of boils down to expectations, doesn't it? At that sort of stage, like, but it's a situation, it's a story that seems to feel like it's the same old thing happening again, just in sort of different circumstance. The results end the same way, in which we've gone about things a little in a different sort of way. The irony in all that is the manager doesn't do anything different. Yeah. And you're left there just scratching your head thinking, you know, how can this continue? And I keep on saying it, and people, please forgive me for banging on this, but you get found out in the Premier League. Everton being in relegation fights for what this looks like to be 4 seasons on the spin. You can't keep doing it. It doesn't matter who's in the Premier League. It doesn't matter. You're better than 3 sides. You're starting to get to the final couple of days of the season. Just even by chance, you won't win the game you need to stay in there, and you inevitably, we normally have Arsenal away on the last day of the season as well. They'll always
frigging Newcastle this year,
I know. Well, exactly. Oh. And you know, last season at Goodison as well. That adds a lot of emotion in. And
our last home game, Southampton, innit?
Yeah, there you go, mate, yeah.
Can't wait for them to relegate us. Brilliant.
They'll still be safe by that time. Anyway, yeah. There's the mental side of it, the sort of mentality side of it is something we bang on about all the time, really, because we're that football club. But that today, losing that game, that's a big hit in the bollocks. And you look at the ones going forward there before we get to Christmas, which, you know, you're probably best turning footy off, not going the game, and just thinking nicely about
have a nice December.
I was going to say, think about your Christmas dinner. Think I've got my birthday the week before Christmas. Do you know what I mean? Just don't watch the games. Yeah. Do you remember as well, going off on the tangent? Do you remember back in the day where you used to have that ridiculous amount of games around Christmas? Yeah. Where it'd be something silly like 5 in 12 days or something like that. You play it never happens anymore. Yeah. But you play the day after the next.
Yeah. It was a big make or break, wasn't it? It's like if you were in relegation trouble by New Year, like between Boxing Day and New Year, you could be safe. Yeah. It was mad.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish that still went. You know, it was boss to watch anyway, but we'd fall apart. We'd already be down when it come by New Year if that was the case. But we'll finish up there anyway. Everton have been beaten 1-0 away at Southampton. Thanks to Warren as well for giving us his first couple of minutes there at the start of this, letting us know his thoughts of what happened down at St Mary's. It's West Ham next. We've got the usual week coming up. Me and Les are back on Monday to reflect a little bit more on this and have a look ahead to what's coming up against West Ham and all the other stuff we're going to be talking about as well. Let us know your thoughts, feelings, everything else towards all of our social activities that we've got going on, and obviously get on YouTube as well, where you'll get the visual version of everything else we do. So thanks for listening, and up the toffees.